Alright, today we talked about angles and parallel lines. We actually have addressed a lot of the vocabulary in the previous section, but big difference between the last section and this section is that we now have parallel lines, and they're going to make a difference in what we do. Okay, so when two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, there are special pairs that occur. We're going to talk specifically about 4 of them. The first one's our alternate interior. And to be alternate interior, these are our angles that are inside our parallel lines. So we're looking at all these angles inside. And they have to lie on alternating sides of the transversal. So this is our transversal. And on alternating sides, we're talking about an angle here and an angle here. And sometimes I like to say they make the S shape. And if these two lines end up being parallel, then these angles are congruent. So I give you some examples of some congruent angles here. I have 3 and 5, and we would say angle 3 is congruent to 5 because of the lines are parallel. And then we have another pair here. We would also say 4 is congruent to 6. And those are known as alternate interior angles. Alternate exterior angles are when they lie outside our two parallel lines. So all the angles here and here. And then they are also on alternating sides of the transversal. So we're talking about alternating, that's on this side, and the other one on that side. If we get parallel lines, then these angles are congruent. So I have an example here, 1 and 8. We would say angle 1 is congruent to angle 8. And then here's our next one. Our next pair, angle 2 is also congruent to angle 7 because they are alternate exterior angles and because the lines are parallel. Corresponding angles are angles that are on the same position on the two lines in relation to the transversal. And if you remember, I like to say these angles form the F. So I have an angle here and an angle here. And because the lines are parallel, then the angles will be congruent. And we have several pairs of these. We have, here I have 2 and 5, so we would say angle 2 is congruent to angle 5 because they're corresponding angles. We have 1 and 6, 4 and 8, and 3 and 7. So we can say angle 1 is congruent to angle 6, angle 4 is congruent to angle 8, and angle 7 is congruent to angle 3. And those are, the other one, angle 2 and angle 5, these are all congruent angles because of their position, the corresponding angles. Alright, our last special pair is the consecutive interior. To be consecutive interior, they have to be inside, and then the keyword on the same side of the transversal. So we're talking about on the same side over here. So if the lines are parallel, then we find out that these are supplementary. So these are actually the ones that are not congruent. To be supplementary, it means that the measure of their angles will add to be 180. We have another pair on the other side, and so we can also write a statement for this. The measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 6 is 180 degrees. Okay, on example 1 it says find all the different pairs of congruent angles. They're not all congruent. Some of them you'll find that are not congruent, and I'll explain it when we get there. So A is looking for all of the alternate interior. Remember to do this, we're looking inside and on different sides, so this is the S shape we're talking about. So for our interior we would say that 3 and 5, and they are congruent because our lines are parallel. I didn't tell you that, but they are. Then we have one more pair of alternate interior, and that would be our 4 and our 6. So angle 4 is congruent to angle 6. Okay, our consecutive interior, that means we are inside those lines, and consecutive, we're on the same side So the angles that are inside and on the same side, these are not congruent, but we can write a statement about them. So we're going to say that the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 6 equals 180. And then the other pair, measure of angle 4 and measure of angle 5 equals 180. Our alternate exterior, remember they are on the outside of the line, so here and here, and then they're on alternating sides, so like a 2 and a 7. So angle 2 is congruent to angle 7, and the other pair is angle 1 and angle 8. Corresponding, these are the ones that I like to say make the F. So 4 and 8 would be a pair that are congruent. We also have 3 and 7, 1 and 6, and 2 and 5. Alright, linear pair, these again are not actually congruent angles. Linear pair means that they have to be adjacent and they form a line. Adjacent means next to, so if we look at angles 2 and 4, they are next to each other and they form a line. So we're going to actually just write a statement about them, that the measure of angle 2 and the measure of angle 4 equal 180. We could say this about 1 and 2, 1 and 3, and 3 and 4, so that would give us 4 total. Then we can look at the bottom pair. We can say 7 and 8 equals 180. We could say 6 and 5 equal 180, or 6 and 7 and 5 and 8. So there's actually 8 pairs that we could work with to write a statement about. I'm just going to show you 2. And then our last one are known as vertical angles. Vertical angles, if you remember, they're the ones that make an X, so we're talking about 5 and 7 here. So vertical angles are congruent. So 5 is congruent to 7, 6 is congruent to 8, 1 is congruent to 4, and angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. On example 2, it wants you to find each angle if 4 is 72 degrees. So the first thing I would look at is I know that 1 is 72 because they are vertical angles. From there I know that 4 and 8 are the same because they're corresponding angles. So I'm going to go down to angle 8. I know that 4 and 6 are congruent because they are alternate interiors. And I think that's about all of them. We're going to look at 4 and 2. I know that they are a linear pair, so they're supplementary. So if I add 4 and 2 together, it has to equal 180 degrees. So since 4 is 72, that will make 2 108. I know 2 and 3 are congruent because they're vertical angles. So 3 is 108. I know 2 and 5 are corresponding angles, so 5 is 108. And then I know 2 and 7 are alternate exterior angles, so 7 is also 108 degrees. On example 3, this is probably the most simple example I can give you. They won't be this easy on your homework, but it says the parallel lines are cut by a transversal, find the value of x. So we know these are corresponding angles. We know that if the lines are parallel, corresponding angles, their measures are equal. So we're going to set them equal to solve. Then we divide by 2, and x equals 59. Alright, that should help with your assignment 8-2 transversals and angle pairs. Good luck.